Well, I mean, I've been listening to more podcasts and then driving back and forth from Fayetteville. I hadn't been on an active military base ever. So I had to get like a day pass to get to the hockey rink and stuff like that. Yeah. But anyway, you know, a lot of folks are doing now, they're doing free podcasts, essentially. And then one of the episodes a week is like a Patreon or Substack subscriber exclusive. And some of the Substack stuff ends up being not like a extended mailbag, but it's essentially people who are paying basically get to dictate what it is.
Drive the bus. Free for all Friday.
Basically, yes. There are no new ideas, Joe.
Never will be.
There will never be new ideas. It's all just remixes. Where's my the remix of all these radio bits? Anyway, you ready?
Yeah.
We'll do it live. Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias inside the Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. It's a lot of 2024 problems on the horizon. A couple of weeks till Christmas, a couple of weeks till New Year's, and you're thinking about how 2024 is going to play out. You want to save some money? Really easy way to do it. Print and management costs. So get that assessment right now at copiers-plus.com. So I discovered a way to make the Carolina Panthers way more entertaining product than what you're seeing right now at 1-12.
What'd you do? Tell.
I just listened to the radio call. Buddy, Jake Delhomme is sick. Jake Delhomme cannot stand what he is watching. Anish, like all the promise in the, oh man, Bryce, yeah, here we go. He's broken, man. I don't know if you, because I went to Fayetteville twice this weekend for Junior Canes hockey, and I was listening to Rock 92. They're the people with the two guys named Chris. That's what I originally wanted to name the show Two Guys Named Joe. Okay. I realized, crap, there's a show out there in the Triad called Two Guys Named Chris. Can't do that. Anyway, so I'm listening to the Panthers broadcast, and I'm going to give the Panthers radio broadcast a lot of credit because you know how it is in this world, man. The owners, management, they do not want criticism.
Step lightly on some of that.
You really do. Not the Panthers, because I'm bringing this up to illustrate the point that the Panthers are so pathetic right now that not even the radio broadcast can hide it. And I don't think they're going to get any flack from David Tepper or anybody else in the Panthers organization, because you just go back to them like, well, what are we supposed to say? We're supposed to BS people? We're all watching this. You all see this crap. And it's like, again, I feel like I should reach out to Jake, but I don't want to, like, I'm sure it's like touching a nerve right now how bad the Panthers are. Just like, and having to, like, our friend Julian Council over at Locked On Panthers, man, my dude's got to talk about the Panthers 5 freaking days a week on top of doing a reaction to that. I don't envy you, man. Like, how do you watch that and just go, all right, well, what's the new entertaining way we could talk about the Panthers being bad? So as I'm driving back and I'm listening to the first half in the car, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how the hell are we going to talk about this on Monday? and I think the only way to spin it, I guess, is a variation of what you've been saying for the last few weeks. The Panthers need a fast forward button, because what you're seeing right now gives you no indication about anything. I mean, Chris Tabor, I forgot Chris Tabor was the guy in Chicago. Remember the double doink? When Chicago went through all that business about, like, we got to find a kicker. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And they had like this ridiculous, like super secretive audition where they pumped in crowd noise. I'm like, man, you just missed a kick. Like,
right.
It happened.
No, it was
double doink.
It was actually blocked.
Was it blocked?
It was tipped. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So I forgot
like
Tabor.
That poor guy, that poor kicker, like they were ready to string him up.
I forgot that Tabor was
tipped.
I forgot that Tabor was a special teams coach. And that was probably the most pathetic aspect of Sunday, where you are the special teams coach. That's your job. And they clowned you, resulting in a touchdown. Because it wasn't like the Saints were really doing much to win that game. It's not like Derek Carr was really inspiring any confidence. The Saints also dared the Carolina Panthers to throw it down the field, knowing full damn well they don't have wide receivers that can make a catch. And then making matters worse, and I actually caught this on TV, where, Mingo's just wide open, and could have made it a game, and Bryce Young misses him. So anything that could go wrong for the Carolina Panthers has gone wrong for the Carolina Panthers, and it's breaking people, man. It's really breaking people.
You know how I feel about point differential.
Yeah.
And you could sit here and say, duh, Joe, the Panthers are 1-12. Yes, they're the worst team in the NFL.
Yes.
Minus 144. Worst point differential in the NFL. They need to get a new GM. They need to restructure whatever they're doing.
Yes.
It is time potentially to move on from Ike Ekwonu. He's not good. I mean, you try in the offseason.
So you don't think, okay, so you don't think
try in the offseason. I think they're identifying.
He was good last year.
They had a very specific way that they wanted to play. And Ike was always good at run blocking. At NC State, he was not good at pass blocking.
Okay, all right.
So I think they've identified the wrong players at the top of the draft, which was the one thing that always saved them. So you need a new GM. You need a new structure. You need the owner to get out of the way. You need a new coach. You have to try to save this quarterback. It's too soon to give up on this quarterback.
I agree with you.
He's not inspiring confidence. Okay. He's playing poorly. And for the first time in his life, he's struggling. It happens. Everyone is entitled to struggle and find their way out of those struggles. They gave up too much to get him to move on from him after 1 year. So their priorities need to be getting a better general manager and talent evaluator, putting a better structure in place that David Tepper can't just come in and be like, hey, it'd be a really good idea for us to run a 3-4. Like we're like a half a day away from Richard Nixon calling plays on Monday Night Football. Like just, somebody, it happened. Look it up.
No, I know. I was like, that. It took me a second. I was like, deep cut, Joe. Deep cut.
You talk about calls coming from inside the building.
Right.
Like, this guy's going to put Matt Canada in charge and ask for the jet sweeps.
Oh, jeez. Come on,
don't do that.
Don't do that. The Panthers fans are in a very fragile place right now, man.
An entire reset.
Yes.
And other than the one position, they need an entire reset. I would move Burns. I would move everything that you could move that's possibly capable of being moved. And I would just say cap space is an asset. And then that's the way that you have to approach this offseason.
I'm glad you brought up the Bryce Young aspect of this, because I got G-Ville Tar Heel, who's always in my mentions. Shout out to G-Ville Tar Heel, Matt, man. And he's like, Bryce has been terrible this half, to put it nicely. That Mingo overthrow was a must, and it was an atrocious throw. Okay, a couple things. I'm not gonna absolve the throw. It was a bad throw. And I think Jake Delhomme probably put it best. I mean, Jake was trying to spin it the best he could on the radio broadcast. He's like, look, man, that's a confidence thing. Like your confidence is shot, because I would say this to Matt or anybody else who just wants to hyperfixate on that throw. Who's to say Mingo would have caught it?
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of other instances.
They should actually probably take a look at not playing Bryce at this point.
That was
because I don't think there's any development to be had under the current staff, the way that it's situated with the skill players that they have and the offensive line that they have.
I was adamant. I was adamant about not sitting Bryce. Let him go through it.
I understand that, and there's a way to learn. But I think you and I agree the number one goal for this season should be to not break Bryce Young.
Yes.
And if that means to not play, then that's okay. Because you fired the coach. You don't have the skill players. Miles Sanders out there high stepping on one of these runs. I wanted to go out there and throttle him. Where the hell's that been all year? Frank Reich's probably looking for it too. They're a deeply flawed team that in the absolute worst division in football is somehow 1-12.
Dude, it's funny where you can go back and you can say we were right about stuff. The idea that the Carolina Panthers could compete in the NFC South was absolutely true.
And win the league with 8 wins.
Yes. Yeah. So you are going to have an NFC South champ that is going to host a playoff game.
Yeah.
Again,
and get
with a losing record,
smoked by the Cowboys, but that's okay. It happens.
It does happen. Every time we talk about the Carolina Panthers, I want to buy a round for the Panthers radio broadcast crew, man. I want to buy a round of graffiti for them. Come on down. Yeah. Let's buy you some bourbon, guys. You have earned it. I don't even know if they drink. Doesn't matter. Here, you want to get some aggression out? Throw axes if you have to. That's what you might have to do. So head on over to downtown Cary. It is gorgeous this time of the year in downtown Cary. They got all the stuff up for Christmas. And there's a lot of great new things that are opening up down there. Make it a night and started at Graffiti, where you can have a great time drinking bourbon. Break even night on Tuesday as well. You get bourbon at their cost. It's really great stuff. You mentioned the Dallas Cowboys. And
we're in that part of the cycle.
We are, man.
We're in that
you've seen
part
the meme.
Of the cycle.
You've seen the meme where everybody's super hyped up about stuff, right? And I think there's a couple of things where I'm gonna have to come off my initial thought about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles having a rematch in the Super Bowl, because the Eagles have largely been the same. And the reason why I've been confident in the Eagles is they've been finding ways to win despite the fact that they're not looking like world beaters. I give you credit for finding ways to win, and they've gone through a very difficult. Yeah, the Eagles.
Oh, their schedule's been
brutal. They've been brutal, and this is now 2 weeks in a row where they've been outclassed by NFC top tier opponents. The 49ers, obviously, and now with the Dallas Cowboys, and Dak Prescott seems to be in his zone, and there's serious.
Don't let me in my zone.
There's serious consideration for the MVP. But here's my problem with the Dallas Cowboys. To your point, it's the cycle. I want to see the Cowboys do this when it really matters. I'm going to give them credit that they put the hammer down on an NFC East opponent in a very competitive NFC year, again, because the AFC continues to be an absolute mess. So the NFC being as difficult as it is, you do prove something in the way that you go out there and you beat some of the best teams. But what is their postseason record? How do things play out once December comes to a close? How are you looking in January? Right now, they're doing that thing. But to your point, Joe, that cycle, man, the Cowboys fans, the Cowboy Nation thing, it's in that cycle where they're going to get ready to get let down. You know it's going to happen because that's what always happens to the Cowboys. And then you got the Chiefs. So the Chiefs, I think they've lost, 4 of their last 6. And they have been in close games that have come down to some questionable officiating at the end of the game. Last week against the Green Bay Packers, they had a call that benefited them when they threw a flag on a ridiculous roughing the passer or late hit on Patrick Mahomes. He was clearly still in bounds. And of course, there was the makeup call in that they didn't throw a flag on an obvious pass interference on Pac Pro MVS. Fast forward to this past Sunday, close game, ridiculous play from Travis Kelce, throwing it back to Kadarius Toney. Toney scores the touchdown, but no flag on the play. He was offsides. He was lined up offsides. And this caused our guy, Patrick Mahomes, to lose his mind after the game. This is the audio picked up by a local television station as he's embracing Josh Allen, who's been going through it this year. I'm sure the last thing Josh Allen wanted to hear after the week the Buffalo Bills have had, given Tyler Dunn's reporting on behind-the-scenes magic with Sean McDermott, that he wanted to hear this.
Wildest fucking call I've ever seen, man. Offensive offsides in that moment, man. Fucking terrible.
Wildest call he's seen. And then he continued after the game explaining more about, man, this is my favorite part about Patrick Mahomes. Look, man, the call's the call, but let's think about the children. Let's think about the game that I love.
It should. It's obviously tough to swallow. Not only for me, but just for football in general. Just to take away greatness like that. For a guy like Travis to make a play like that, and who knows if we win. But as I know, as fans, you want to see the guys on the field decide the game. And that's why last week I didn't say anything about the flag that didn't get called on Marquez. And so, they're human, man. They make mistakes. But, it's every week we're talking about something, and all I can do is go out there and give everything I have, and I'm proud of the guys because that's what we did, and it was a great football game that ended – another great football game that just ended like that. It's just tough to swallow.
Patrick, what do you, for lack of a better term, what made you boil over? Was it that itself, or was it
it's the call, man. Just in that moment, it's not even for myself or for me. It's just I know how much everybody puts into this game, and for it to happen on a flag change the outcome of a game. In that moment, I've played 7 years, never had offensive offsides called. That's elementary school. We talk about. You point to the ref, do all that different type of stuff, and and it doesn't get called. And if it does, they warn you, and there was no warning throughout the entire game. And then you wait till there's a minute left in the game to make a call like that. It's just tough, man. It's lost for words, man. It's tough because regardless if we win or lose, man, just for it to end with another game and we're talking about the refs, man, it's just not what we want for the NFL and for football.
Think of the game. Think of the moment. Think about what we're doing to the game I love. I've never seen. He's right, by the way. Typically in these situations, if you're lined up off sides, you get a warning. Andy Reid talked about this after the game as well. The pandemic rules that you love to bring up all the time.
Yeah, but that's
what happens.
This is a procedural penalty.
No, I understand.
You can't yada 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 procedural penalties. You can keep your flag in your pocket,
you can,
as they did in the entire second half of the AFC Championship last year. I will remind you.
Yes, they did.
While the other team incurred 5 penalties and you had none.
Yeah.
None.
Nobody wants to hear the warning from Patrick Mahomes.
None.
I just wanted to make a really quick point about the procedural penalty. You're right. He was offside.
Oh, you check with the ref. Yes,
you check. There's
why
all
they're
sorts of
upset.
nuance to that stuff.
What they're saying is, if you take 1,000 snaps, in 999 of those snaps, if you say to the ref, "Hey, am I good?" and he says, "Yes, no, back up, take a step up, do this, do that," all in the span of 2 seconds, right? So yes, I get that frustration.
It's like there's holding on every play, that kind of thing, and there's offsides on every play, but there's warnings, etc.
There is a frustration there as a football lifer for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Yes,
I get that. But when you go back and you look at it and you go, well, he was only slightly offsides. Well, he was offsides, still pregnant. Okay,
no, but here's what's really going on. It's not about the play, man. It's not about that. It's not about whether they threw a flag or not, because as you pointed out, you can easily retort not just to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, any championship level team that complains about the officiating. Oh, do we really want to get into the semantics of who got the calls right and who got them wrong? Right. Because every championship team gets breaks. I think what's happening with Patrick Mahomes is that there's a frustration level that's finally boiling over with a team that has not been able to get right offensively. They've been winning some weird games. And it's funny, you and I, before I hit record on the podcast today, I did joke with you. I said, hey, turns out you were right about the Kansas City Chiefs and Tyreek Hill. Funny way of them winning a Super Bowl along the way, but it looks like those issues about playmakers. Now, they've got like Rice has come up, but the Kadarius Toney experiment has been a level of frustration for the Chiefs that knows no ends. And I think this was the boiling point over where here's a guy who has an incredible amount of talent, but makes some really silly mistakes that end up costing him games like it did last night.
Yeah, you want to be mad at somebody. Patrick Mahomes, be mad at your receiver.
Yes.
Who lined up offsides.
Yes.
That's the person to be mad at. Now, to rehash, the Chiefs gave away one of the, 5 decent playmakers in the NFL right now.
MVP candidate.
Because let me tell you, we had another one of those games this weekend between the Vikings and the Raiders where I'm seriously questioning what in the world. I mean, we're going full Vince Lombardi on 2 teams that scored 3 points.
What the hell's going on here?
NFL in 2023?
It does.
In a controlled environment, by the way. It wasn't like it was in the snow. It wasn't like there were 40-mile-per-hour gusts of wind. Yeah. It wasn't a fog bowl. It was just sheer incompetence. And how are we here? That we had 2 games this week that went to half with no points.
Right.
Part of it's the Jets. Okay, fine. But like, what are the Raiders and Vikings excuse at this point?
So that it's funny.
And how is the league not? How are they not behind closed doors right now? Going, we have a serious problem
because the money's good. The money's good and the ratings are good. I just got an email newsletter from Front Office Sports.
How can the ratings be good for this?
Because we
crap?
Because we accept it. That's why.
The Ravens-Rams game was awesome. It was like one of the first good games
incredible
I've seen all year. And the Chiefs-Bills game was entertaining as well.
So it's funny you mentioned the offense because I had jotted this down too about going back to the Carolina Panthers, right? And I can sit here and just blast. I could put the Panthers on blast all day. And they are pathetic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to absolve what we're seeing out of the Carolina Panthers. But when you take a step back from the inability for them to offense at all, to your point, look at the rest of the league. We're in a world where we are rehashing Joe Flacco elite takes without hesitation. The Browns named him the starter after this. You bring up Zach Wilson. Shout out to one of our listeners who pointed out a photo that was taken after the game where Robert Saleh is embracing Zach Wilson. The will he or won't he engage with the quarterback? And you can see Aaron Rodgers with the sad face. Now, I think that was just Aaron Rodgers in a bad, just you caught a face in a moment. Doesn't mean anything. But me knowing Aaron Rodgers, he's probably thinking, damn it.
Put $1 in there.
I know. Fine, man.
Not supposed to be talking
I'm
about
just
him.
bringing it up in the context of where we are offensively. And we all have these moments. There was the Josh. Remember Josh Dobbs was the hot shit for like 2 weeks?
Hey, we get Tommy DeVito tonight. We get cutlets at home tonight.
You making the chicken a parmesan. Let's go with the Tommy DeVito. Now, and then we got, what is it? Jake Browning, the second coming of Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. But that's what we're doing.
It's almost like the coach matters and the guy calling the plays matters.
Weird, right?
What?
But my point is, you're looking at every couple of weeks we're having this, like, look at this great story. No, man. This is bad where you really are scraping. These are C and D level stories of any scripted show. Like, you watched, which shows did you actually watch?
This is when you got Ian Ziering and Steve Sanders on.
Yes.
90210.
Yes.
It's not Kelly.
No,
it's not Brenda.
It's like, wait a minute. Why are they spending
what's
time?
Steve and Andrea, what are they up to?
Why are they spending time on these two characters right now? Oh, they're padding time. That's what these stories are. That's what
The
Browning
C
is.
story arc.
That's
Yeah.
what Joe Flacco is. I mean, I'm guessing. Did you watch The Sopranos? I'm sure there
I
was.
feel like the Browns have like the best wins in the NFL this year.
They
Strangely
kinda
enough,
do.
though.
Yeah, and with a variety. And they just cut PJ Walker too.
Did they?
The XFL Mahomes. Brutal, right? So I asked.
Cold world, man.
I asked ChatGPT to write a song about breaking up with officials.
Okay.
This is what it spit out. In the stadium of love, we had our game, but you were the ref, always shifting blame. Flags flying high, throwing yellow rain, but I couldn't stay. I had to break the chain. That's really clever, actually. That's a bar from ChatGPT. This is the pre-chorus. You blew the whistle on our love affair, thrown a flag, said it's beyond repair. I'm leaving the field, don't need your call. I'm walking away, breaking free from it all. And then the chorus, I'm breaking up with the NFL official. No more flags, no more issues. Our love was a game, but now I'm done. I'm leaving the field. Our race is run. And then in the second verse, you reviewed our love like it's under review, but I don't accept a Booth's point of view. Your penalties hurt, but my heart's not blind. I'm leaving the field, leaving you behind. I'm telling you, people have been wondering about Taylor Swift and whether or not she's going to write a breakup album with Travis Kelce, which Tony Romo mistakenly referred to Taylor Swift as Travis Kelce's wife. Whoopsies. But anyway, it's not going to be about Travis Kelce. It's going to be about Taylor Swift's new appreciation of the NFL and being NFL pilled by Mahomes' wife. I forgot her name. I can't remember Patrick Mahomes' wife, but she did go viral because she had taken an Instagram story, zoomed in on the ref, and then captioned it MVP on the ref. They're feeling it right now in Kansas City, man. They're feeling it right now. To the flip side of this,
It's very rich Chiefs fans.
I know.
Very rich.
I know. It's like when the New England Patriots fan. It's like Tom Brady's new leaning into an old man. I think the latest is that Rob Gronkowski said that we could beat up Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in a fist fight. Is that where we're at right now?
My dad could beat up your dad.
On the other side of this, here's what I'm not going to do. I am not going to act as though the Buffalo Bills are a team that you can believe in because they beat the Chiefs this weekend. I'm not going to do it because it's a feast or famine with the Bills. And who's to say that Sean McDermott's motivational tactics work this week, but he might decide, hey, he might go full, you got to hand it to the terrorists with another motivational speech.
Okay, well, let's take Sean McDermott's misguided motivational tactics out for just 1 second.
You got to hand it to him, Joe.
They were great communicators.
I mean, they had a goal.
There were so many historical examples that he could have used.
There's so many examples he could have used from 9/11 that did not invoke the terrorists.
So many.
Does he not have a guy on staff?
So no, not when you're getting ready
but you know
to talk to your team.
But you
like,
know my feelings on this.
No, that's when you're.
That's when you're back.
And yeah, like you.
But you know my feelings on this. I feel like every NFL team, any organization should have somebody on staff that can throw a red flag in these situations.
Yeah, the director of common sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like whoa,
offering our services to all.
Are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that?
No,
but I'm not buying the Bills.
No, that's fine. But let me give you where you should take some credit when it comes to the Bills.
Okay.
Because you have this weird hate for Josh Allen.
I do.
Because you love Cam Newton.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen and Cam Newton are archetypes, similar archetypes, similar molds.
Mind you, Josh Allen has weapons that Cam Newton never had, and then managed to piss them off like Stephon Diggs. That's neither here nor there.
For sure. But
got to fire Ken Dorsey because you can't fire Josh Allen, apparently.
Here's where I just want you to acknowledge where you're right about Josh Allen.
Yeah.
When he does not turn the ball over.
Yeah, he had some lasers.
Like he's, giving this thing away like at Club Live when he's not Marvin Austin getting the bottles.
Right.
Like when he takes care of the football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's special.
Yeah.
The question is, when he tries to do too much, as we've seen throughout the season and other years where he's struggled, when he tries to do too much, that's when he turns the football over. That's when he has issues. When he plays like the last 2 weeks, Joe, they lost to the Eagles in overtime and they beat the Chiefs. Like the last 2 weeks, they've been toe to toe. And by the way, he's run for 3 touchdowns because always remember with quarterbacks like Cam Newton, quarterbacks like Josh Allen, quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, when the money's on the table, they need to run. They need to make plays.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts, when the money's on the table, he needs to run.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to make plays.
Mm-hmm.
And when you try to be like, nope, just need you to sit back there, throw it 40 times. And it's like,
it's a mistake.
Let the talented player make plays with their talent. So that's where you've always been right about Josh Allen. What I would say to you, though, is, and you've already said this on this podcast, that the AFC is wide open.
It's totally wide open.
Which I agree with.
It's totally wide open.
And
I thought the Chiefs still had to find a way to have a lock on it. I really did, because I'm not going to discount Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I'm not going to discount Andy Reid, who's been doing it for a really, really long. Good, like you said, coaching ultimately matters.
Coach him up.
And it's one thing that I will pound the table on. Just because you don't have everything going for you, you still have to find other ways to win. And the Chiefs have been winning some weird ones. But when you leave it to a call going one way or the other, well, that's on you. And that's what the Chiefs have been playing with fire.
Baltimore is not cooperating right now. But you realize the one time in his career that Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl was not by accident. They were a wild card. They were not at home. They were playing in perfect conditions the entirety of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But we need to play when it's 30 below degrees and our dick falls off. No, you don't. You need to play with a super offense in super conditions. Would love to see the Chiefs' path somehow go through Miami in that building.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be, that might redeem some of this stuff that we've seen during the season. If the playoffs could give us just a few games of interest, I would be grateful. Watching Lamar Jackson yesterday, I almost tweeted it, but I didn't feel like, oh, that aged really well. But when they got the ball back after the Rams had scored an unbelievable play by Matthew Stafford, they got the ball back, and I'm like, this guy's about to go lead them on the score and win this football game. And I'm going to be mad because we spent the entire February, March talking about, what we are, some of our friends back at our old place who are Colts fans. Oh, I don't want Lamar Jackson. Excuse me? Huh? You're a Panther fan. No, I
don't want that
guy. Even if you're the Panther fan who was standing on the wall screaming about CJ Stroud,
right? Why
wouldn't you want Lamar Jackson? He missed 4 games when he wasn't being paid to play for the team that was shitting on him. Huh? What would you like now? What would you like now? The revenge of Lamar is coming.
Housekeeping. Have you filled out the OG Media survey? Head on over to ogtrianglemedia.com. Please fill out the survey. Help us help you. We're looking for some cool things in 2024. It kind of depends on whether or not you care about those things that we think would be good ideas, right? So head on over to ogtrianglemedia.com. Fill out that survey. I'm rocking the Breaking Tea hoodie today. This is the Ice Caps version of the Ovies and Giglio hoodie collection. Head on over to breakingtea.com/OG. We just dropped a new design a couple of weeks ago. It's the North Carolina flag, OG instead of NC. We got Duke blue, NC State red, Carolina blue,
Love
all
when
in
you
there.
go theater of the mind and describe it.
I mean,
showing it.
Joe, you can take me out of radio, but you cannot take the radio guy out of me, man. You just cannot. So head on over to breakingtea.com/OG. Give yourself the gift of Ovies and Giglio this holiday season. And head on over to State Farm. Matt Davis, InsureGarner.com, VOGinsurance.com, or call him directly at 919-779-8277. Speak directly to somebody, an actual human in the triangle, out in Garner, and take care of your house. I've been a State Farm customer for years.
Yeah, Matt's going to be busy today. This tornado ripped through the middle of Garner yesterday, right there on Woodland and Timber, and hopefully it was just damage to homes and some of the construction sites I saw too. Hopefully that's it. They're always scary,
you were close
man.
to it, man, right?
Oh man, I was watching in real time on ABC, and normally they're like, oh, at first they were like, oh, South Raleigh, this, that. I'm like, Garner's not even on their map. Then all of a sudden, Old Stage Road, Timber Drive. I was like, hold up. We are like in my backyard. They're like McCullers Crossroads. I'm like, where is this thing?
Yeah.
And then we saw when we went. So anyway, my point is you want the right insurance. And I know Matt is there for everyone today in Garner at that touchdown pretty close to the Aversboro location there. So if you need help, you want to save some money, obviously in times like this, your number one thing is you're just trying to rebuild what you've lost. And that's what insurance is for.
And obviously, you're insuring your home. You might be looking for a new home, and that's where Hometown Realty comes into play. Check them out, myhtr.com. New construction. New construction is something that's been a focus right now as this area continues to grow, and that's where Hometown Realty has a level of expertise.
You might hear us talk about new construction. You might understand that HTR is in more than 60% of their business is in new homes. But here's what I didn't understand. Well, why does that matter? Other than, I really want a new house, right? The dealers, the buyers are offering, the builders are offering deals. They'll even buy down a rate. So what you want to do is get in with the people who are in with the builders. That's Hometown Realty. Very awesome website, myhtr.com.
Manny Diaz was introduced as the next head football coach for the Duke Blue Devils on Saturday. I got some reaction to my reaction last week to the initial report that things had been focused on Manny Diaz. I even FaceTimed my dad. You could hear my mom in the background going, "That's a bad hire. That's a bad hire." And I will admit that my initial reaction to Manny Diaz and Duke is baked in, marinated in, if you will, a lot of Miami bias. I'm surrounded by Miami people. And unfortunately, if
you also lived through the Chuck Amato era. Well, his Miami teams were very much Chuck Amato without Phillip Rivers.
We'll get to that in a second.
Don't do the thing where you're swayed because
I'm not swayed.
You saw some stupid interview.
No.
God, man, he's really good at people. No shit. How the hell do you think he got here?
Joe, let's marinate and bake, shall we?
Okay.
Shake and bake.
Okay.
Shake and bake? Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Let's go.
No, shake and bake. You got to do the shake and bake. Did you not watch Talladega Nights? Shake and bake. Anyway.
I hate it when people do that.
What?
He was really good in the press conference. And did you know he works for ESPN and Ryan McKee's really nice? And yes, these are all good things, man. I get it.
I got a text from somebody who's close to Manny Diaz. And they saw my tweet where I was like, Manny effing Diaz?
Yeah.
And the conversation was like, I couldn't tell, like, was that like, yay, Manny Diaz? Or, oh, Manny Diaz? I'm like, no, it was more like, Manny Diaz. And here's the thing. My reaction is mostly baked into Miami stuff. And I will be the first to admit that what exactly has Miami been since Butch Davis left for the Cleveland Browns? You know my stance when it comes to the Miami Hurricanes. Miami thinks it's not a stepping stone job, even though the history of the Miami Hurricanes, when they were running at their hottest, was that they were a stepping stone job for coaches to jump to the NFL back when you could do that.
Yep.
Okay. Now, it worked out for Jimmy Johnson. Didn't work out for Dennis Erickson. Didn't necessarily work out for Butch Davis, but you get my point.
Dennis Erickson had a perfectly fine.
He was
career.
fine. He was fine.
Yeah.
He was fine. He was fine. So Miami is a stepping stone job. And I know that Nina King, the athletics director at Duke, said what every athletic director wants to say. We are not a stepping stone job. You know, they're coming at this from having rebooted things with Mike Elko, and now they can. I mean, the fact that they're in the position to hire what I would call a name coach, which is what Manny Diaz is, a name coach, speaks to where Nina King in this athletic department and how they view Duke football going forward. So I'm going to give him a lot of credit for that. I just don't know if Manny Diaz is the right person for this job. Like my dad joked, everybody deserves a second chance. You're right. Everybody does deserve a second chance. I just don't know if Duke is the right place for Manny Diaz to get that second chance. Here's the thing. Mike Elko made a lot of sense when they hired him at Duke, because look at Mike Elko's background. Mike Elko's background was essentially forged in the fires of smaller schools with Dave Clawson. Now, I understand that Mike Elko does not want to be viewed as a Dave Clawson protege. You and I've had to remind you from time to time when we talk to Elko, hey, don't bring up Dave Clawson this time, because he wants to be his own guy.
Right.
But I think it's fair to say, Joe, the reason why we would bring up Clawson is because there was almost like a 1-for-1 with what's going on at Wake Forest with Dave Clawson and what you could do at Duke. You need somebody who understands that it's not an overnight thing. You got to build, you got to have an identity. You have to find a different way to build that mousetrap in college football when you don't have the same access to the talent level that you can get at other places. So Elko made a lot of sense. Elko gave him a tough identity, which now is going to be a Texas A&M problem. Good luck trying to get them on that same kind of like, we're a tough football team that's going to win a different way. Manny Diaz is the antithesis of that. Manny Diaz has had a very blessed career that has had him be the coordinator at some very high-end places, okay? And I don't know if that background is going to fit him at Duke, where you don't have Texas money behind you and access to Texas recruits. You don't have Penn State level of commitment to football and access to what Penn State has access to. Even Miami, for all the warts that Miami has, operates at a different level, and it didn't work out. He's a really good coordinator, man. That 2017 season for the Miami Hurricanes, where he was the defensive coordinator, and they got to the ACC championship game, which they were outclassed by Clemson, but Clemson was running at a different level than Miami. He gets a lot of credit for instilling life with the turnover chain and the messaging. And when Miami's good and fun, so is college football, so is the ACC. But man, he was 16-13 overall against Power 5 teams as the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, with a talent level that is usually above what Duke has. 4-4 against ranked teams. 0-3 against Mac Brown, which, by the way, as a defensive-minded coach, go look at those Miami, North Carolina games. They were shootouts. That's a problem for me. Yeah. A huge problem for me. So, look, Miami people are going to tell you that he missed a lot in recruiting. He was okay in the transfer portal, but ultimately at a place like Miami, you have all this access, and he was still missing on recruiting. You cannot afford to miss on recruiting at Duke. And those are my big picture questions for Manny Diaz coming to Duke to be the head coach.
All right, so two things. Nina King's 2 for 2 on hires.
Mm-hmm.
That's what surprised me, the juxtaposition of what Manny Diaz's background is and how that traditionally fits at Duke.
Yeah.
Listening to her comments during the press conference, though, she's clearly viewing this as an NIL play.
Okay.
And that Manny Diaz and his background, which we still haven't outlined on this program, his dad was the mayor of Miami. And this is how he got in with Chuck Amato when Chuck was at Florida State. And Manny was like the weight training assistant at NC State and just started working his way up the normal way most young assistants do. So his connection was to South Florida in recruiting, specifically in Miami.
Yeah.
There is a value to that, of course, obviously. Now, does that translate to Duke? Is he going to be able to go into South Florida and convince players who don't want to go to Duke to go to Duke? So Nina is positioning this as a NIL play. That means Duke needs to go ask the basketball program, Hey, can we have some of that AT&T money? Hey, can we have some of that EA Sports money?
They have money
for football. Can we have some of that money for football? Not saying it can't be done. She's thinking a step ahead. So I want to give her full credit for looking at this going, what you just said was the old way that Duke had to compete.
Yep.
She's looking at it going, how do we compete in the new world? And she believes Manny can unlock a different type of recruiting, a different type of NIL, all while having the same kind of identity on defense, because that was Mike's background as well, and maybe playing that way. But what they're underestimating in the way that I look at it, I don't think, and Ben over at Bull City Coordinators has kind of been texting with me, and I said, you got to think of it this way. In the last 2 years, you haven't lost a football game because of your coach. You haven't. And you're about to get into a bunch of coin toss games. And fair enough, people lose coin toss games. That's why they're coin toss games. But you're about to lose a bunch of games because of your coach.
Yeah.
Unless Manny has figured out how to do something completely out of character from what we've seen from him and his mentor. I keep going back to Chuck Amato because he's the one who brought Chuck to the sideline in Chapel Hill and then paid a perfect homage to him, just short of bringing Derek Morris off of the bus and jumping off sides on every play.
Discipline.
It was a clinic in bad coaching.
Yeah.
Think about that. He was out-coached by Mac Brown.
I know.
Okay.
That's why I brought
Think about that.
That's why I brought up the 0-3 record against Mac Brown at UNC.
Think about that for a second.
Yes.
Okay. So that's where my concern, and I think it's awesome that he has the background at ESPN. I think it's awesome that his dad was the mayor of Miami, which I would assume you have to have some political guile to achieve, right? And you inherit gifts from your father. I think all those things are great. He can be a very good defensive coordinator in the right spot.
Yes.
That doesn't mean he has been a very good defensive coordinator Mike Elko was at every single spot.
Let's never forget that he did get fired after the Taysom Hill game at Texas by Mac Brown.
And Texas has a different standard. I understand
there is a different standard there, but also there's.
But I don't want to hear what I don't want to hear.
One of my favorite things I saw in the hiring of Manny Diaz were some Miami fans going, can't wait to see Manny Diaz in Duke blue get this awkward handshake after Mac Brown embarrasses him again.
What I don't want to hear, though, is about the Penn State prowess. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is why I watched way too many Big Ten games.
I know you did.
They have exactly 2 football teams that are capable of playing offense in that league.
Yeah.
His defense was so bad in one of those 2 games that Michigan did not throw a forward pass in the second half of the football game. So don't give me Manny's going to come in here and scheme this thing up.
He's not.
That's not what's going to happen. You are perfectly in your right to tell me that he's going to come in. We're making an NIL play. We're making a recruiting play. We're rebranding Duke football. Fine. What I'm telling you, though, is Mike Elko schemed people up. You won games because of your coach. You're now going to enter the territory where you lose coin toss games and you're going to point the finger at one person.
Let's see who the coordinators are going to be. I mean, we know what defense is going to be, but let's see who they bring in to be
Kevin Johnson. I'm all for that. That would be great.
I'll be curious to see how that plays out. Every time we talk about college football, it's brought to you by Wings Over. Check them out in downtown Raleigh, in Chapel Hill, and in Greenville. A lot of people have been hitting us up on social media. They're all in on the tots. We love to see that. You can order.
Are amazing.
You can order online. You can order ahead. Get your stuff. It'll be on time, hot and fresh, ready to go to take on home. So check out Wings Over in Raleigh.
Yeah, if you're sitting there watching a 3-0 NFL game,
you might as well eat wings, bro.
Dude,
let's do this.
Hook yourself up. Treat yourself.
If you're going to be watching some terrible bowl games where you're going, wait a minute, I thought this guy was playing, but he's not playing. Oh, it's another opt out. Oh, okay, cool. Well, do it while you're eating wings. Which gets us to UNC. One quick note before we move on.
Quick.
Whoa. So Tez Walker.
Quick.
So Tez Walker is opting out of the Mayo Bowl in Charlotte. Now let's put the pieces together. Wait a minute. The Mayo Bowl, Charlotte, Tez Walker. What was one of the bigger arguments that was being used to get him on the football field to everything else. Yes, the family and Charlotte and being closer to home and extra. So here it is, this bowl game, and you're not playing.
He wrote a letter to the NCAA that basically said he's lived his whole life and he would mean the world to him to play in Charlotte in front of his family.
But he's not now. When the opportunity was there,
I don't think he's a first round pick.
Well,
either.
he's going to go to the Senior Bowl.
If you're not a first round pick, I don't understand not playing.
So
that's just me.
Here's my.
What was the guy who was the quarterback who ended up playing linebacker? He was like a third round pick. He's not in the league anymore. Surratt.
Oh, Chad Surratt.
Like when those guys sit out of bowl games, I'm kind of like.
So here's a couple of things about this. I'm going to remain consistent, man. You do what you need to do. If you feel to get
sure,
if you feel that,
but if you're a first round pick, I totally get it. If you're not, I don't necessarily get it.
But let's talk about what the Senior Bowl really is. It's basically a big, long job interview where Matt Rule can come and tell you, like, I'm going to coach.
Don't tell me, good job, coach. Thanks, coach.
I'm going to coach you hard. I'm going to coach you hard, okay? Don't give
me this coach stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, coach.
Yes, sir. Don't say yes.
Don't say that. I'm here to coach you hard. Anyway.
Great moments
in Matt Rule history.
Hits in Matt Rule history.
So the Senior Bowl should be the focus for a guy who wants to take his game to the NFL, and the Senior Bowl ends up being a place where you can probably elevate yourself based on it's one long job interview in practice, being around the right people and everything else. So I'm not going to fault him for that. I'm not going to fault anybody for not playing in a bowl game. Honestly, I'm
not faulting them. I'm just saying there's a difference when you're a first round pick and when you're not. In my own head, that's all.
Sure. My cynical takeaway on this is that, and I guess it gets back to our interview with Josh Stein last week, North Carolina Attorney General, who was a part of a lawsuit against the NCAA to get rid of these transfer rules altogether. When you put these rules in place and you leave it to the NCAA to interpret all sorts of things that they should not be interpreting, it leads you to throw the kitchen sink at everything and put yourself in a position where you can look hypocritical down the line. I think everybody understood we want Tez Walker on the field because we think Tez Walker can help us win football games, right? I mean, it's
Carolina's viewpoint.
But this is true everywhere. It's not just about Carolina. I don't want to make this just about Carolina. I don't want to be viewed as a hater for Carolina because that's not what it is for me. For me, it is yet another example of why the transfer rules are silly in their execution and having to go for all these waivers and come up with all sorts of excuses that puts you in a position where, so it wasn't about this? Yeah, we know. It was about getting on the damn football field, y'all. And that's what it should always be about. It's about playing. That's what you want to do. You want to win. And it's unfortunate that Tez has been put in this position where people can call him out for this kind of stuff. And you have these debates that go on and whatnot. And you kind of go, what happened to all that? I hate that. I hate that for Tez. I think it brings out ugliness from people that is not needed in these situations. And there's a real easy solution to avoid all this crap where you're not second guessing a player. You're not second guessing family stuff. You just let them freaking play.
Again, I'll ask you the same question that I asked Josh Stein. At what point is the NCAA's right to make their own rules interfere with the rules of society?
Yeah.
They made a rule that you're allowed to transfer once for any reason that you want for free. Don't have to sit out. They changed that rule. Then they said from the schools themselves, including Mac Brown on the record saying, we need to cut down on the second time transfer. Okay. So if you made a rule, at some point you have to enforce the rule. To your point, to intermittently enforce it when you feel like it, or because somebody's got a family member and they're playing the fiddle for you, that feels like a you problem.
That's where we get into the aspect of consideration. And that's where, these are arbitrary rules with zero consideration.
I'm just saying, at some point they have the right to make their own rules.
And people have the right to challenge those rules to see if they make sense.
This is not the lawsuit that I wanted them to be involved with. I wanted them to be involved with Dwayne Carter, Duke defensive lineman, who's suing the NCAA along with a few other athletes because they're not being compensated as they should be. They should have a share of the revenue that they help generate. That does not come without them participating in the sports that they do. That's the lawsuit I want to see the state of North Carolina in. Not the transfers. The
I'm with you on that.
transfers feels performative to me.
Okay, I could see that. I can see that point of view,
and it's crazy low hanging fruit too. Like,
hey man,
again, let's play the fiddle, let's play the violin for grandma.
Hey man, sometimes you got to take the wins where you can get them.
I understand. Trust me, I understand that.
I do think they actually are tied together in the aspect of, if you want those kinds of rules in place. To your point, when is the NCAA allowed to make those rules? Well, you collectively bargain those rules.
Yes.
Okay.
With that, I agree.
So if you want to make it so that, hey man, you get one free transfer, that second one is a different situation. Well, you collectively bargain that with the guys who are playing the game and who are ultimately making the money for playing said game. And I think we're eventually going to get to that. And that's where all these lawsuits kind of work in tandem to get to where Charlie Baker's trying to get ahead of it by saying, all right, let's create this FBS plus, because everything has to be a plus. Do we come out with an OG plus?
Power is power, Joe.
Yes, power is power. How about the power to create some comfortable hoodies and t-shirts? That's Home Field. They've got that power. They got some really cool retro-inspired designs. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com. I can't stress this enough as we get closer and closer to Christmas. Order now. Use the promo code OG23 when you order to save 15% off that order and get it in time for Christmas. Again, that's homefieldapparel.com.
OG23. And they have all kinds of deals going on right now too. So,
speaking of legal involvement, Whitaker and Hamer can probably do a collective bargaining agreement for you. They can represent you.
Yes, they can.
Right? That's what they have with their attorneys and counselors at law. Check them out online at wh.lawyer.
Who do have law degrees and can explain these things.
Yeah. Maybe
they can fight these things.
It might be time to do a show from Shady's, man, and catch up on some of this legal stuff.
Past due.
No, we are past due to hang out at Shady's for sure. So check them out online at wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer.
We're moving on.
Congratulations to the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Maybe Anthony Davis needs to play every postseason game on a neutral court. Maybe that's what he needs to do.
Yes.
Right?
Look at you.
Little bubble ball.
Yep.
For Anthony Davis. That's how they won a championship. And now they are the first ever in-season tournament champ. And now.
Yeah, they got to do something. I know they called it the NBA Cup.
Yeah.
Just call it the Michael Jordan Cup.
Michael Jordan never won that cup, though.
Yeah, but he was the ultimate
competitor. But they should name it the LeBron James Cup. Because you know what?
Well, he's still playing.
You know what Michael Jordan never did, Joe?
Never lost in the finals, obvious.
He's also never been MVP of the in-season tournament.
IST that sounds like an STD.
IST, actually, the first thing I thought about with IST was you got like IBS.
IST does sound like some sort of side effect, like
you've taken some ridiculous
Grinvera or something.
Right, all the weird names that they throw a bunch of letters together to come up with some sort of name for a pill. Yeah, it's like if you're suffering from IST. But no, that
side effects might include death.
Well, death is a pre-existing condition, Joe. But yeah, man, like I think the argument ender just happened this weekend. Michael Jordan never did any of this. LeBron James did, man.
I will say I enjoyed the in-season tournament, but I was confused by it. And I think, this is a good way to start. And I also would like it. What do you think? I would like it in the middle of the season.
No.
You're saying this is the way to kick off the season.
If you were, so here's the thing about the in-season tournament that I find interesting.
And if you would like to spin this forward to some of our pre-existing ideas about the ACC, we can try some of that too.
So this is a class. My first thought on this actually was my first actual, not like let's make LeBron James, Michael Jordan jokes, was yet another example of social media not translating into actual ratings. Okay. That social media is not the real world, that you can get caught up in your bubble. And based on social media reaction to the in-season tournament and eventually getting to Vegas and having this game, a lot of folks are going, well, damn it, Adam Silver won. Adam Silver, when he's not randomly bringing up Henry Kissinger and Pat McAfee interviews, actually got this right. He got me to care about these games. And Meta brought a lot of influencers to Vegas. I mean, they got Adrian Wojnarowski Woj bombs on Threads. Like, that's a big get. So in that world, it was really being drummed up as a success. Like, man, it got me to care. But the ratings don't reflect that. The ratings for the in-season tournament essentially were slightly better than your regular season games between top level opponents, not your, nobody cares about game between, I don't know, the Indiana Pacers and the Houston Rockets. But you get my point. So the ratings didn't necessarily reflect all of this positive buzz that I was seeing on social media. If I were to do this again, and they're going to do it again, but also let's be clear about what this is. This is about creating an event for people to buy. This is something that Adam Silver clearly wants a streaming service to buy. They want these games on Amazon as an exclusive. They want these games. I think Netflix at one point was approached about carrying these games, and Netflix was like, nah, we're good. So it's about creating an event for the inventory. But I think the issue is trying to tie this to the regular season. At some point, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL have to admit that regular season inventory is simply not getting it done anymore. And scarcity is the reason why people will care about these types of things. So if I was to do this again, I would scrap the point of these being regular games that count towards the regular season. I would kick off, you have your preseason, and then you have your group play that happens on Tuesdays and Fridays to start the season, and it does not count towards the regular season at all. That all this is being built for the in-season tournament itself. Rename it to the Tip-Off Classic, rename it to the season opening, whatever you want to call it, but don't tie it to the regular season. Make it its own thing that won't create confusion with fans about, well, is this a game that counts towards group play? Is it not a game that counts towards group play? Oh, now we're in the elimination aspect of it. Just do your preseason, do the in-season tournament, hit the reset button, and on December 25th, casual NBA fans start to the season. That's when you start your regular season and then start leading up to the playoffs. If it reduces your regular season inventory, you've made up for it by having the in-season tournament. That's how I would do it. But, they're very loath to get rid of regular season games right now.
I like the format.
Yeah.
But it is confusing.
Yeah.
When you're baking it into the regular season schedule. I will say that. There is no rule that says you have to play 82 games, by the way.
No. No. It's this arbitrary construct that we're like,
your league.
Well, we have to play 82. No, you don't. And you can create different value for these games that will not eat into your revenue. But what do I know?
Remember when the NHL went into a bubble and I told you,
yeah, man,
hey, moving your biggest event away from the NBA's biggest event is not the worst idea in the history of the world. Reconstructing your calendar is not the worst idea in the history of the world. I think that's where you and I could spin this forward to the ACC, where you want to go play in the Garden? Go play a tournament in the Garden.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be in March.
Right.
When the Big East has their tournament.
You want to bring 8 teams to the Garden? 4 of them old school ACC, 4 of them new school?
Well, you know my thoughts.
Do it.
You know my thoughts on this.
You want to go to Greensboro?
And do a split.
Yeah.
You do a split. You basically put your Big East adjacent teams at Madison Square Garden in December. Holiday, call it whatever you want. I don't care what you call it. You come back here, you call it the Big Four, if you want to call it, just to kind of get the memories, dust off the cobwebs for the old timers to come out to Greensboro Coliseum. But
play it around Coliseum.
Yeah, you could do that too.
Play it at Carmichael.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, these are all great ideas. And that's the thing. It's nobody wants to admit that interest in regular season games has diminished over time as everybody has pushed towards postseason play as being the thing that matters. Like we get this argument with baseball, like it's a random chaos generator. We get this in the NBA. What's the point until you get to the postseason? The NFL is the only one that manages to get both because of the scarcity. That's why the NFL works. You can complain about the games being spread out throughout the week and how the lack of concentration on a Sunday diminishes what you're watching in a certain way, but there's still only so many of these regular season games that matter. I mean, we're talking about teams like the Buffalo Bills that can be on the precipice of being in or out on a week-to-week basis. That generates interest. We'll get to the Carolina Hurricanes in a little bit. Like right now, they're, I think, 6th in the Metro, if I'm looking at the standings correct, after a 4-game losing streak. But I'm not necessarily worried about the Carolina Panthers or the Carolina Hurricanes right now because The Carolina Hurricanes need to kind of get their act together, and then we can really start worrying. They got to get their stuff right now.
I will say
back to the ACC. If everybody recognizes that the regular season product is not generating interest, and you have TV executives that go like, well, why can't Duke and Carolina play 3 times, 4 times? Well, there's a way to do that if you get out of your comfort level and create things like a split tournament at MSG in the Greensboro Coliseum.
I will say this for the NBA. You said interest.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is player interest.
They bought into this, by the way.
Players did.
Yes.
So on that front, it was a success for Adam Silver. I don't necessarily think you have that problem in college basketball, but college basketball could use bigger events. And yes, the idea, like we'll see this week with Carolina and Kentucky and UCLA being in the same site. But the problem with those games is they're just one-off games.
Mm-hmm.
The Big Four was, guess what? The next day you come back and the winners play.
Yeah.
So there's something to that. These MTE events in college basketball now, there's no stakes.
No, none whatsoever. Absolutely none whatsoever. Relegation might help. But of course, this is America. We ain't doing relegation.
Yeah.
We just ain't doing that. It is the holiday season. You're doing a lot of running around, or like me, you're doing a lot of driving around for hockey games and various other stuff. Drop on by Breeze Through. Yes, gas is important, but you need coffee. You need the hydration. You need a snack. They've got it all at Breeze Through. Locations across Triangle, locations across North Carolina. So go check them out. And we have to figure out, do we want to do another After Dark? Like after a Carolina State basketball game?
Potentially.
Does that hit the same?
I thought this was part of the survey. But
Yeah.
But we can always go to Chapel Hill too. I think we're welcome there at some point.
I think we might have something cooking for Chapel Hill. We might have something cooking for Chapel Hill. And of course, the Butcher's Market, thanks to them.
We got something cooking with Kenneth. I told him as long as we have an Ethernet cord, we can get this thing done over at the new location in Lake Boone.
Are we doing a show for the Meat Locker?
No, nobody needs to go in the Meat Locker.
The visual.
I worry about you sometimes.
Do it for the YouTubes. Who doesn't want a hanging tenderloin of beef behind you while doing a show?
Just play clips of Rocky. You don't need to be in the Meat Locker.
Yeah.
Kenneth is worried about us being in the Meat Locker. So
I guess there's contamination.
Let's not make our person be upset. Let's just do the right thing.
I'm with you on
do
that.
a show from the Butcher's Market. They have a new location, Lake Boone Trail.
Yeah.
Go check them out. Get yourself ready for Christmas. Our friend Al and Kathleen, I saw their tweets about all the things they found, a certain type of sausage that they were excited about. And I was like,
sausage. Yeah.
Listen, you never know until you try it. Like they everything they pick is really, really good. So go check them out. The Butcher's Market, new location on Lake Boone.
What's up next?
Speaking of the Carolina Hurricanes, 4-game losing streak. Not great. Not great, Bob. And I saw the News and Observer that there was a players only meeting. We've hit that portion of the programming where the players in the locker room and talking about how, we can't keep doing this. We need complete buy-in. Even Rod Brindamore is over it. Like after the most recent loss to Vancouver over the weekend, they tried to spin it with like, hey, but that was a great third period, right? I mean, you liked the way they played in the third period, right? And Rod's like, yeah, that was nice, but
I don't know. It's tough because you got to play 60 minutes, right? And can't, like I said, it's, when you just give a goal here or there, it's right now we don't have that margin, right? So that's been the interesting thing. But at the end of the day, too, we got to get more out of some of our guys. Our top guys are not. I don't think they're scoring. They're not really contributing offensively, which is making it hard. So I like the third though. That was we dug in and just didn't get it.
So that was Rod Brindamore after the most recent loss. That is a 4-game losing streak. You'll remember last November, the Carolina Hurricanes entered into a 5-game losing streak, but then they just absolutely crushed it after that. I don't see where people would believe they can replicate that turnaround as much as they did last year, this year, because there are some inherent problems. We talked about goaltending last week, Joe. Peter Kochetkov and Antti Ranta are essentially 2 backup goalies while their main guy, Freddie Anderson, is out with the blood clotting issue, and we don't know when he's going to come back. Ranta is 3.4 goals against, 0.86 save percentage. Kochetkov is 3.1, 2 goals against, and an 8.73 save percentage. Goaltending is the obvious issue, but I do think that the Canes have some other problems that are coming home to roost right now, and a lot of it is the classic Sidney Lowism, man. Your best players have to be your best players. I know that Andrei Svechnikov has been missing some time with injury, but that doesn't absolve guys like Sebastian Aho, who have come up very, very leaving you wanting more based on what we've seen so far out of the Canes.
I think it starts on the defensive side. This is a team that their identity has been the best defense in the NHL, no matter who the goalie is. And the goalies have struggled. There's no question about that. They've been, pick whatever metric you want, they've been off the charts bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was one of our listeners that pointed out a expected goals for against.
They're like 2 of the 3 worst,
like
or
last.
2 of the 4 worst.
Yeah, they're terrible.
They're bad. Okay, but part of that is how the people play in front of you. I am curious to see this idea of, they dress 7. Are they finding the right pairings? Are they finding the right moves? Orlov was a bonus addition this summer. I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying they've. What's up with Pesci? He's not getting paid. He wants to get paid. Sometimes you just bring a guy back like they did with Justin Falk, and maybe sometimes that guy ain't pouring it out for you.
Yeah.
I don't know the nitty gritty of what is wrong with what they're doing. I can tell you, though, that their process is off. And that is what bothers Rod Brind'Amour. Like if he thought, I could, again, let's go trade for Patrick Waugh and Marty Brodeur. We'll solve the world's problems right now. I don't think that's the answer.
No.
The interesting part on the offensive side, and we've had this conversation, is Sebastian Aho good enough to be your best player? And the way that he scores goals, I would say no.
Well, here's my question. I'm going to flip it.
But you have to,
if
this just gets into our Bryce Young conversations, that you have to have the right people around him.
Well, is it the right people around him? Or also, I think it's something that I think is okay to discuss, because we've seen the results in the postseason when things start to get really, really tight and everything's at a premium and you need guys to step up and elevate. The Carolina Hurricanes and how they play under Rod Brind'Amour is very tied to the said system.
Yeah.
And hockey knowers will tell you that it is yet to be resolved if a guy like Sebastian Aho can elevate to that level, or he's handcuffed by the way the Hurricanes want to play hockey. And do you let it, because right now their whole entire shtick is let's just cause chaos in front of the net. And you have to, people are looking to score rather than playing within the system. Rod's brought this stuff up in the past as well. And it starts from the goal mouth out, strong defense, just locking things down, suffocating you. It's like when it's on, it's really fun to watch and it's miserable for the opponents. But when it's not all cylinders clicking, do you allow for a little freelancing? Do you allow for Aho to be like, all right, I'm just going to go win this damn game?
Sure. Well,
and I don't know the answer to that. I am not deeply versed in hockey to know this. It's just what I see other teams play the Canes, and you see the teams that ultimately go pretty far in the playoffs. You see a level of play from their best players that absolutely take over. And I don't know if the Hurricanes are allowing that to happen.
I think there's also a book on the Canes now.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
how you have to play against the Canes and giving up the puck, making it harder for them to basically forecheck you on your end of the ice. So that there's a book there. And I think teams adjust. I think the Canes will adjust. But to your point about, is there something wrong with the system? I don't think so. I mean, the idea of let's just keep getting pucks at the net. Let's keep getting traffic. Let's puck possession. Like this is not rocket science the way that they want to play.
It's not.
But it requires a very specific effort, which they're not getting right now.
They're not getting
it
that.
Also requires your defense to not be sloppy. And that's where I raise an eyebrow a little bit. Some of the Orlov stuff, like, okay, he's an outstanding player, but he's used to playing a different way.
Yeah.
And they've been sloppy on defense, which has not been what they do. And so I think they have to solve that first. There's probably not a magic bullet short of Freddie coming back. And that's a nebulous situation where you want that guy to have the best possible health for him. Because we talk about blood cutting. This is not a groin. This is not an ankle. This
you get
is not
one aspect of that wrong.
Yeah.
It's a wrap, man.
Correct. So, that's a precarious position to be in with one of your most important players. But to your point about the system, their bet was that their players that they went with, Natchez, Svech, Aho, were going to be good enough to score enough goals to carry them. We haven't seen that yet at the level when you're talking about Colorado, you're talking about Edmonton, you're talking about the high end teams and the way that they play, even Boston, how they rely on their top end the way that they do. So that's a fair question about Sebastian Aho. I think if you accept that Sebastian Aho is not Connor McDavid or,
who is, man?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like at some point you just have to understand who he is and what makes him better. And if you're doing what's best to help him, Svech needs to, and it's tough because he's coming off an ACL. And even though he's back playing, doesn't mean he's fully healed from the ACL, by the way. So that's where you need a Natchez, a Cook, Kanyemi. And Turbo played the way that he did at the beginning of the season. That's a little bit of fool's gold. A little bit. He even said that, I'm not going to score at this same rate the whole season.
It's not who he is. It's not who he is.
But, that's where you kind of got to look. Seth Jarvis is a guy who I think is elevating his game. But, ultimately, you're not talking about one of the most skilled players in the history of the world. You're talking about a guy who's plays hard, plays fast, and fits into what they do.
Big thanks to Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority for sponsoring Ovias and Gilio. Check them out, bugsbite.com. I actually drive past the Pest Authority office. Office is on 440 when I'm taking the kids to school. And look, local company, Hayes, an OG, catch them at state games, catch them around town, and they can take care of you, whether it's protecting your home, not just your usual upkeep with pest maintenance. We're talking about making sure that termites don't affect your house, making sure that when it's mosquito season again, you can go above and beyond with things like misting systems. So all these things in play. Check them out, bugsbite.com. Let's get out of here with some Hey Joe questions. Big thanks to Anthony over at Oakwood Pizza Box. Check them out online at oakwoodpizzabox.com. Can't recommend the square pizza enough, but low key, the Caesar salad is one of the best Caesar salads you're going to find anywhere in the triangle. This is not a bag salad.
No. Homemade breadcrumbs.
Yep.
Homemade dressing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the romaine is like romaine. Okay. Not just like bag stuff that they just throw onto a plate. It's good stuff.
Anthony gets his basil from Hawaii.
I love that.
Like,
I love that.
This is not somebody who there are no half measures with Anthony.
Much different from us. We're all about half measures.
We are.
Let's go to Matt on Threads. My 12-year-old son asked for some sports paraphernalia for Christmas, specifically some mini helmets to put around his room. I asked him if he wanted a Panthers helmet, and he said, nah, maybe a UNC one. And that's even after being at that UVA game. Even kids have given up on caring about the Panthers. And that will take a long time to recover from.
Yeah, when you lose the youths.
I believe the children are our future. Yeah, if you're not doing it, if the kids aren't into you, man, it's a wrap. It's a young man's game out there. From JDB, the sports gods are going to perpetually smite David Tepper for messing with the Triangle's best chance at a second pro team. I'm like, what, NCFC curse? And he followed up, yep, there is no believable way anyone can convince me Charlotte was the better soccer market. They could have had another Columbus, but instead they ended up with a team half the state hates. Why MLS basically said one team to NC, but was fine putting a Cincinnati team with Columbus closer by it is an insult too. Well, I think we kind of understand how we ended up in a world where David Tepper got a Charlotte team for MLS. He overspent. One thing MLS loves. Oh, you want to give us in cash an expansion fee? Let's go. Unfortunately, it was just something that Stephen Malik did not have. And there was concern in MLS circles about whether or not they wanted to invite a team or grant a team to a group that didn't have the kind of money they're looking for out of Stephen Malik. Tepper just happens to have that money. And I think he set the market on what the expansion fee is going to be going forward. Let's go to the YouTubes. Very, very active on YouTube the last couple of weeks. But the two things that stuck out, actually one main thing that stuck out. This is from Timmy Ann. I know Joe O would be into that creepy Disney neighborhood. As soon as I read about it, I want to be as far away from it as I possibly can, from story living and Imagineers as I possibly can. And then Steve followed up saying, watching Giglio lose it made my day. I'm still smiling and chuckling over that. I think Joe Ovias needs a clip of that sound and make it his new ringtone for any time Giglio calls or texts. Because, yes, you did lose it. Especially after I was like, no more Aaron Rodgers. Okay, cool. Let's talk about Disney. You're like, no!
That's not the answer.
No!
Whew.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about that Disney place.
It's not that far from Ken, by the way.
It's not. It's really not. So maybe we could go out and visit. So I love visiting the parks, man. Absolutely love visiting the parks. You, of course, are not somebody who cares about visiting the parks.
If it didn't cost me both of my kidneys do it, maybe I would enjoy it. Your brother probably has it right, though, with
the annual pass holder.
You get a pass, you save yourself some money.
You go when you want.
And you go when you're ready.
I would never live at a place like that.
I don't believe
you. Did you ever watch Truman Show?
Yeah.
The Jim Carrey movie?
Yeah.
Where he was living his life on a TV set. So Disney's done this before. There's a town in Florida called Celebration just outside the park. And Celebration.
Why do you torture me like this?
Why? How am I torturing you? How am I torturing you?
Why do you torture me?
I'm telling you this to you would appreciate it. You would appreciate it. Like if you ever went to Celebration, you would think that it was almost like not a cult per se, not a cult, but it's very, very creepy. Very creepy.
Doctor.
Very creepy.
Heal thyself, doctor.
And the minute I was like, I could totally live in Celebration, Florida, until I went through the town. I made Kelly drive through Celebration years ago, like 20 years ago. And once I drove through, I went, man, I don't know. This could all be one big stunt. And next thing you know, we're going to be part of some sort of Disney reality show without realizing it. Everything is cooked, right? Is cooked. Our friend Jeremy Markovich actually wrote about this on his NC Rabbit Hole newsletter. And there's been a weird history between the state of North Carolina and Disney and how business leaders, state politicians have tried to bring Disney here. You know, there were rumors that the original Magic Kingdom could have been here. There was the Disney America debacle, right? All of this is to say, here's where I'm leading. I'm bringing you in.
I feel like
I'm bringing you in, Joe. I'm bringing you in.
Down, trying not to break.
Are you ready? This is where I'm bringing you in. It's all leading to this part about it. Apparently, at one point in time, according to Jeremy, that Randy Parton Theater, Carolina Crossroads, Roanoke Rapids area was targeted, or at least offered as like a, hey, here's this land where you can build stuff for Disney. All right. Now, of course, that all fell apart in the 90s. But that land still exists, and that theater is still sitting there with nothing going on. How has there not been development for a casino yet? How has there not been somebody pushing to take that area and completely transform it before Virginia starts? I mean, you drive to Virginia all the time. How are people not fighting for this yet? Tom Dundon's out here buying the Backyard Bistro. You telling me you can't do something bigger with all that land out there? That's what that's for. Why won't Tom Dundon buy the Randy Parton Theater?
Once you can gamble on your phone,
it's a wrap. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Shouts to our friend Joey. Went up to Washington this weekend to see how the Capitals and Wizards handle their in-arena stuff. One interesting point there was the only way to gamble at the arena, which is where the ACC tournament is to have that arena app. It has to be a Caesars app.
Okay, so we're looking into our future then, is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know if it'll work that way in North Carolina or not, but we'll find out once they, stop dragging their feet.
So I had to have that conversation with one of the hockey dads. Shout out to Aaron. And he put me on to Prize Picks, which is like a daily fantasy parlay. He's all about parlays. You would roll your eyes talking to Aaron. He's not a youth. He's like our age.
Okay.
And I did tip him off though to your hustle. I said, "Are you doing golf?" He goes, "What do you mean?"
Golf
I'm like,
is the best.
I said, "Well, Giglio's all about golf, and it's not about picking who to win. It's like you just need some rando to finish in the top 15. You make some money." He goes, "Oh." I was like, "Yeah." So look that up. So this weekend he tells me, "Hey man, I'm in the mix. Like I picked some random guy to finish in the top 15. He's currently sitting at 12. I can turn that around real quick." So I'm out here educating, Joe. But the Prize Picks, I was curious about because I guess it's just they spit at you 3 players. It's all player props, and you have to hit like 3 different.
Yeah, I don't believe in any of those ever since they said the game was rigged back in the day.
What game was
Daily
rigged?
Fantasy? How they had people working on the inside and
yeah, the hook on the hook on those daily fantasy things were you had to differentiate.
No, they had people working for DraftKings, assuming that their algorithm was the same at FanDuel and insider trading.
Oh, I see. I remember now.
Yeah, it's all.
I just knew
Not that all gambling isn't BS. I understand
it's all crap. Joe.
I understand it's all a fugazi. However, I don't need
It's all a fugazi. You know what a fugazi is? Fugazi. It's a fake. Yeah, fugazi. It's a wazi. It's a woozy. It's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist.
Yes, it's all a fugazi. I understand that. But I'm not participating in something where the game is absolutely rigged.
Because when I tried doing daily fantasy stuff, what I figured out was, I'm going to have the same lineup as everybody else. You have to pick like the one Hank Basket game of the week where he scored 2 touchdowns randomly for the Eagles. And that's going to be the difference between you and everybody else because you all basically have the same lineup.
Kendra told him.
You go out there and score, and then you can score later. I believe that's how it worked. I believe I watched that episode. So that's why I stopped playing FanDuel and DraftKings in that regard for daily fantasy. Prize Pick seems different. No?
It's all a fugazi.
Okay. All right. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. We'll see you tomorrow.